Can I ask you something? Who were you before the world started telling you who you were supposed to be? Before the heartbreaks, the mistakes, and the moments when you learned to shrink yourself to make other people feel comfortable? I've been thinking about that question a lot lately because somewhere along the way, many of us stopped becoming who we truly are and started becoming who we thought everyone else needed us to be. Well, not anymore. Welcome to Becoming Bella Badass, the podcast. I'm your host, Bella Badass, and I'm really, really glad you're here. Maybe you're watching because someone sent this to you. Maybe you found this by accident. Or maybe you're here because you wanted to roast the fuck out of me. And honestly, welcome anyway. Or maybe you're here because something inside you knows it's time for a change. Maybe you're carrying things nobody else can see. Maybe you're wondering if life can feel different, if you'll ever stop feeling like, what is going on? If that's you, I hope this podcast feels like home because that's exactly what I want it to be. Not a place where anyone has to pretend they have it all figured out, not a place to build around perfect, not a place built around perfect stories and highlight reels, but a place where people share real experiences, the messy ones, the painful ones, the hopeful ones, the hopeless ones, the stories that remind us we're not alone. Before we go any further, I just want you to know something. I'm not a therapist. I'm not here because I have all the answers, because I definitely fucking don't. I'm just another human being who's been broken, who's made mistakes, who's had to rebuild, and who refuses to believe our hardest moments get to decide who we become. Because I don't believe we're defined by where we've been. I believe we're shaped by what we choose next. That's why the podcast exists. Every one episode comes back to that one question. Who are you becoming? People ask me all the time, who is Bella? And honestly, I've spent a lot of time trying to answer that question. Not what I do, not the jobs I've had, not what people on social media think they know about me. Who am I really? I know. But I think that answer has changed as I've grown. I'm someone who's made mistakes, someone who's trusted the wrong people, someone who stayed where they should have probably left, someone who's walked away from things that no longer aligned with who I wanted to become. I've failed. I've been humbled. I've had to start over more times than I can count. And if I'm being honest, I'm still becoming. I don't have life figured out. I don't know if I will soon. And I don't wake up every day filled with confidence. I have to shove it in my brain. There's days where I doubt myself, days I wonder if I'm doing enough, days I wonder if I'm enough, days where showing up sometimes feels impossible, but I show up anyway because I've learned something. Growth isn't about becoming, it's about becoming honest. Being a person, a good person, doesn't mean you've never messed up. Good people mess up all the time, but what makes you good is that you own up to your shit. You take accountability and you're willing to look yourself in the mirror and say, I fucked up. You apologize when you're wrong. You learn from your mistakes. You give yourself grace and you keep pushing. That's the kind of person that I want to be. I'm unapologetically passionate about being myself, not the version that gets the most likes, not the version that makes everyone feel comfortable, and not the version people try and have tried to put in a box. Just me, as I am, as I show up. Some people will love that and some people won't. And I've finally learned to be okay with that. I would rather be hated for who I am than loved for something that I'm not. Because the people who find this podcast aren't looking for someone perfect. They're looking for someone real. And I hope that I can be that for you. They're probably looking for someone willing to have the conversations most people avoid, someone who tells the truth with love, even if it stings a little bit, and someone who believes accountability and compassion can exist together. I want this podcast to be a reminder that your past can shape your story, but it never, ever, ever gets to define who you are. Oh, sorry. Maybe today you're living your best chapter, or maybe you're living your hardest one. Either way, you're still becoming. And maybe that's the most beautiful part about being human because we're never finished. We're always growing, we're always learning. And just like the seasons of the weather, we all have our own seasons, we all have our own chapters. And one of my chapters, people asked me, when did you decide to stop pretending and just show up as yourself? And the truth is, I almost never got the chance. A few years ago, a lot of people know this story. I went in for what was supposed to be a routine gallbladder surgery. You hear about people having them all the time. You go in, you wake up, you recover, you go home, you hurt for a couple days. I thought that that's what my story was going to be too, but it wasn't. What was supposed to be routine became one of the hardest seasons of my life. My bile duct was snipped during surgery. I began internally bleeding and my body started shutting down. My lips were blue and I had to get brought to an ER, and they said that I had just abdominal fluid in my stomach, and that was far from the truth. I was internally bleeding, and I had to stay in the hospital for a couple weeks. I had drains for months and stents and so many surgeries. They drained 11 liters of fluid in the first hour that I had my drain. And when I woke up from the surgery, I didn't know what was going on. So I woke up to tubes in my stomach, up had 2 IVs, and I got a blood clot, like, there was so much, and I don't know if I've ever even really processed it, and then just when I finally started feeling comfortable that things were getting better, I finally start feeling like myself, something inside me changed again. When you come face to face with the possibility of dying, you stop worrying about a lot of the things that used to seem important. You stop caring so much about fitting in. I stopped caring about what I look like on the internet. If it's not perfect, I'm posting it because this is me and this is who I am and that's who I'm going to show up as. And if people don't like it, I don't give a fuck. And I want you guys to feel that way too because who cares? I did not survive that moment to be small, play small. I survived that moment because I have a life to live, and it's not about how much money do I wanna make or what do people think of me. It's what do I wanna become? Who do I want to be in life? And that's that wake-up call for me that I wanna hear from you guys. And for a long time, I thought surviving meant the hardest part was over. And I thought once my body healed, everything else would fall back into place. But healing isn't that simple. Sometimes your body survives. And I don't like being in survival mode. Sorry, we lost some light. But you survive, and long before your mind does. Sometimes the scars people can't see take the longest to heal in your subconscious or conscious mind, and you don't even think about it. Looking back at everything I think through, that sentence keeps coming to me. It eventually became the title of a very short piece that's on my link tree that you can read. The pain that tried to kill me, the soul that wouldn't let go. It's a beautiful piece. It comes from my heart. And it's about my experience with close to death. And it I don't even know if like, I talk about it so much, but it still gets me because in that moment, I thought I was dead, and I look like it's like I was looking at myself on a table, just, like, dying, and I was like, "Get the fuck up. Get up. You're not going nowhere. You're not dying. You wanna live," which is crazy because I've struggled with suicidal thoughts, and at that moment, none of those mattered, like, I needed to live. So some days I questioned everything, but somewhere underneath all those emotions, hope never completely left. Looking back now, I don't think that surviving was the miracle. I think that the miracle was that my soul never stopped believing there was still a life worth fighting for. And that realization changed everything for me because I stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And I started asking, what can I become because of what I've survived? And not just in that moment, in all parts of life. And that question is the reason this podcast exists. I need a drink real quick. For a while, I believed surviving was the finish line. The once my body healed, life would just go back normal. But sometimes the chapter you think is ending is actually the beginning of a completely different chapter. Today, I live with functional seizures, which completely hit me out of nowhere. They're unpredictable. They can happen while I'm walking, talking, or when my body or mind becomes overwhelmed. And if you've ever seen one, they can be scary. And honestly, they're really scary for me too. And people see me smiling on social media. They see me building a business, starting a podcast, creating content, laughing, living, and they assume everything must be okay. But I'm posting a lot of old shit. And that's why social media isn't always real. And it is hot as a motherfucker in here because the fans are so loud, but they don't see the days I can't trust my own body, the countless doctor appointments that I have, the uncertainty and the grief of what I thought that my life would be. Because now I'm adapting to this whole new thing, and it just is a reminder to stay ready. And I don't know if that's a good quality that I have or not, but when you're mourning someone that's still alive and it's yourself, the future that you've imagined, the person you thought you were becoming, I wish I could tell you healing is a straight line, but it isn't. Some days I feel unstoppable, and some days getting out of bed is the biggest accomplishment of the day, and I feel like a piece of shit because of that sometimes. But both deserve grace, and that's something I'm really trying to give myself. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that strength doesn't always look like the way we expect. Sometimes strength is pushing forward, and sometimes it's resting. Sometimes it's asking for help. Sometimes it's admitting you're not okay. And for so long, I thought asking for help meant I was weak. Now I know it takes courage because pretending you're okay is fucking exhausting. Being honest is freeing. It frees me. And I feel like you're stronger if you ask for help than if you suffer in silence. And I also realized I spent so much of my time waiting to be the version of myself I thought I was supposed to be, waiting until I'm healthier, more successful, more confident, more healed. But life doesn't fucking wait for perfect. And neither should we. Just do it. If I'd waited for until everything was perfect before starting this podcast, I'm in a fucking camper. Like, my studio was a camper, you know? If I waited, the podcast wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have pushed it out. And the seizures are the reason this podcast exists. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still becoming because maybe that's what people actually need to see, not someone who's arrived, but someone who keeps moving forward even when the road changes. If you're listening to this today, maybe your story doesn't look exactly like mine or anything like mine. Maybe you've never had surgery. Maybe you've never almost died. Maybe that wasn't your wake up call. Maybe you've never had a seizure. Or maybe your pain came from somewhere completely fucking different. Loss, addiction, abuse, depression, divorce, seeing your parents get divorced, grief, childhood, failure, loneliness. I've been in a lot of those places too. But whatever it is, I always stay resilient. And I feel like when those moments happen, failure is a fucking push for me. I love failing. And I know like but I'm scared of success. And pain as a way of convincing us that our story's over, and I don't believe that. I'm trying not to believe that. And the hardest chapters don't change your entire life. They're just a piece. And it doesn't decide who you get to become next. You decide. And maybe life will knock us down again. If there's one thing I've learned, is that none of us are promised an easy life. None of us. But every single one of us gets another opportunity to decide how we'll respond every day. Every setback, every new beginning, we get to choose who are we becoming. My mouth's dry as a bitch. Okay. One of my favorite conversations happened when I first told someone the name of this podcast. They looked at me. It was my mom, actually. She looked at me and she was like, "But you already are Bella Badass. Why would you name it Becoming Bella Badass?" And I got kind of annoyed, but I smiled because I don't think she meant, like, understood what I meant. To me, becoming is the most important word in the title because I don't believe any of us ever truly arrive because there's no finish line where we suddenly become the strongest, healthiest, most healed versions of ourselves because we're always healing from something. There's no moment where we wake up and think, that's it. I've got everything all figured out. I'm done growing. I'm done growing. Life doesn't fucking work that way. We're always evolving, always learning, and always becoming. And that's the beauty of it. Some days we're becoming stronger. Some days we're becoming softer. Some days we're becoming more patient. Gotta work on that motherfucking one. And some days we're becoming more honest. And every experience, every challenge, every choice is shaping us into someone new. So, no, I don't think I've arrived at being Bella Badass. I don't think I've reached some final version of myself. I think I'm still becoming her every fucking day. And I'm sorry for the curse words, but I'm really actually not sorry at all because that's who I am. I think that's the whole point. And being a badass isn't about becoming someone who never struggles. It isn't about looking tough. It isn't about having tattoos or having the perfect comeback and pretending nothing hurts. To me, being a badass is about who you choose to become because of what you've been through. It's getting back up after life knocks you down, and it's taking accountability when you've made those mistakes. And it's setting boundaries with people you love because your peace matters too. And that's something that I've recently learned within the last year and a half. Your peace matters, even if it upsets someone. It's forgiving yourself for the things that you wish you would have done differently, and it's choosing growth over comfort. I love being uncomfortable because my life was chaos. It's choosing healing over hiding, telling the truth, especially when the truth is uncomfortable, and so much more. That's what being a badass looks like to me. Not perfection, not a rival, becoming. And honestly, I don't think this podcast is even about trauma. Trauma may be where someone's story begins, but it's rarely ever where their story ends. Because what happens to us is only part of the story. It's just a little chapter or a sentence or a page. The other part is who we become because of it. This podcast is about identity, it's about rebuilding, and it's about taking your life back, about remembering who you were before the world convinced you to become someone else. Because one time our parents looked at us like, she's going to be something amazing, or he's going to be something amazing. I love, like, he has such personality. And then one day, that personality just vanished and we just try to fit in. Don't fucking fit in. You're someone who survived something, and you're someone who's going to be shaped into something great. You're someone who found faith, lost faith, still trying to figure out your story. It's okay. This podcast isn't about people who have everything figured out. It's about people who are still becoming. It's not about having all the answers. It's about diving deep into the questions. Why am I like this? Why do I fucking feel like this all the time? Why am I annoyed when this person talks to me? It's about going and getting that answer to those questions. And the biggest one is, who did you become because of what happened to you? And who are you going to become afterwards? Not what happened to you. You've probably been asked that question enough. And I want you to know who you want to become. I want you to know who you're becoming because I believe that's where the real story lives. And maybe if enough of us are brave enough to tell our story, someone listening will realize they're not broken, they're not behind, they're not failing because they haven't arrived. They're becoming just like the rest of us every single day. As we wrap this episode up, I want to leave you with one thought. You don't have to have your life figured out to start living it. You don't have to be completely healed to make a difference. You don't have to wait until you're fearless to take the first step. And you just have to be willing to take the next one. That's what becoming is. It's about choosing to move forward, even when you're scared, even when you're uncertain, even when life doesn't look anything like you've imagined. Because every time you choose hope over hopelessness, growth over comfort, truth over pretending, you're becoming. And that's something worth celebrating. Oh, I'm just going to hydrate myself with this W energy real quick. But one of my biggest hopes for this podcast is that it reminds people they're not as alone as they think they are. We are all carrying things. Some are visible, some aren't. And every single person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. What if we stop pretending we had it all together? What if we replaced judgment with curiosity, listened more than we spoke, and chose compassion instead of assumptions? Maybe we'd realize we're more alike than we are different. That's where the community I want to build is. Sorry, I had a little distraction. My dad just came in here. Um, got that W energy. But that's the community I want to build here. I kind of dissociated the last couple minutes, but it's not the one based on perfection. It's not the one based on who has the biggest following. It's built on honesty, growth, grace, accountability, and hope. So if you're listening today and you're thinking my story isn't important enough, let me lovingly challenge that. because the stories we often try to hide the hardest are the ones that make someone else feel less alone. If you've walked through addiction, if you've survived abuse, if you've lived through medical trauma, if you've lived through grief, I'm so sorry. You have no idea how hot it is in here. But if you've escaped a toxic relationship, if you've battled mental illness, if you've rebuilt your life after losing everything, or maybe you're still in the middle of becoming, I'd love to hear your story. Not because you're famous, not because your story went viral, but because it changed you. Because someone, somewhere, may need to hear that chapter you're living right now. Because I know if someone was going through what I'm going through right now, I would really want to hear it. So, if you'd like to be a guest on Becoming Bella Badass 999 the podcast, send me an email at BELLABADASS 9991 at gmail.com with the subject line guest. Tell me a little about yourself. Tell me what you've overcome. That's Bella Badass 9991 at gmail.com. Tell me what you're still going through, what you're working through, and most importantly, tell me who you're becoming because I truly believe every person has a story worth telling. And sometimes one honest conversation can change a life. And if we only change one person's life, then I did something good. Before we go, I want to leave you with one question. Who are you becoming? Not who the world expects you to be, not who you were before everything changed, not who you think you're supposed to be. Who are you becoming? Because every choice you make, every boundary you set, every time you choose to begin again, every time you get back up when life tries to keep you down, you're answering that question. Maybe you're becoming stronger, more resilient, more light-hearted. Maybe you're learning to love yourself and how to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made, because that's a tough one too. And maybe you're learning to let go or forgive someone else. We don't forgive people for them, we forgive people for us. Or maybe right now you're just in a season of surviving. And if that's where you are, that still matters. That still counts because surviving is not the absence of growth. Surviving is still becoming. It's just a little tougher. And if this episode made you feel seen, reminded you that you're not alone, or gave you a little hope, I'd love for you to stay with me on this journey and subscribe or follow because this podcast isn't just about me. It's about us. It's about you. It's about the guests. It's about the listeners. It's about anyone who doesn't feel fucking seen by the world. I want to build a community of people who refuse to let our hardest moments become the definition of who we are. A community that understands healing isn't linear, growth isn't always beautiful, and becoming is a journey that never truly ends. So, before you go, remember this. Your mistakes may have written your first chapters. Your trauma may have shaped the story. Your pain may have changed the path. But none of those get to decide how your story ends. That belongs to you. So keep turning the page, keep choosing, keep choosing growth, keep choosing yourself, and keep becoming. I'm Bella Badass. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.